Hello folks, thank you very much for helping me. I'm going to break 2 rules of magic. The first one is don't ever tell people what's going to happen. I'm going to tell you exactly what's going to happen. I'm going to take a playing card. It's going to fall through something impossible. And that impossible object is this. Most magicians don't want you to see the exact moment you're doing something sneaky. So they might use a table or a handkerchief or something like that. I'm going to show you the exact moment the magic is happening. So you wouldn't mind please grab on the corners there for me for a moment. Might you grab there for me for a moment? Perfect. Here's the idea. So there's a magician called David Blaine who years ago did an amazing trick where he took a deck of cards and had somebody choose a playing card, and he threw the deck of cards at the window, and the card that they chose fell through the window. We're going to try my version on a budget. Can I get you guys to bring it down a little bit lower for me for a moment? Perfect, that's great. Stop, that's great. Keep it steady on this side, steady on this side. Marquetta, can I get you to put your hands underneath? On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Jesus.
You did beautiful work. You can stand down. Thank you very much.
What?
So good, that.
Nothing here.
You're gonna love it. That's so good.
That's incredible.
Hello, and thank you very much for purchasing The Fall, my latest release in the Magic community. I'm super excited to share this. This is a perfect, super visual walk-around trick. If you're looking for something that's got Instagram visuals and something you can do 20 times a night, this is the trick for you. I've been working on this for 15, 16 years now. It's my go-to trick if I'm doing walk-around magic and I really want to blow someone away. I'm super excited to share it with you. Let's get into what you get. So I know you guys are super excited to get started with The Fall. A quick overview of the method. So you've got 2 cards that lock together with magnets inside of those. And in performance, you're going to put 1 card on top and you're going to load 1 card invisibly below using the gimmick that I provided. You also have a magnet stuck to your hand. And in performance, you're going to tap the topmost card and the card is going to stick to your hand because of the magnet that's attached to your hand. And the card that's under the plastic will fall through into the spectator's hands or onto the table. So that gives you a rough idea of the method. So this is what you get inside the box. You get an Omni bag. It's a regular plastic grip seal bag, an A4 one. You get a little plastic pot that's got a magnet in there and some super adhesive black putty. And you'll see there's a little plastic tab here. You're going to be very careful, just lever that up, that'll take your card gimmicks out. And you have 1 gimmick which is 2 cards stuck together with a little plastic tab. We'll get into what that does in a moment. And this is the main gimmick, as well as a little piece of shim. Just pop the shim, keep that safe, we'll get to that in a moment. And inside here are the 2 main gimmicks for the routine. I'll now show you what everything does. So here's what everything does. We have got 2 cards, these are the 2 main gimmicks. They are a pair of duplicate cards that look identical, but you'll see there are magnets here and here, and here and here on both cards, but only one of them has a magnet in the centre. Now they are court cards to hide the fact that there are magnets in there, and these cards lock together, if put together in perfect alignment. Doesn't matter which way around they are, they're going to lock in perfect alignment. Now, throughout the course of the routine, I'll be talking about these cards in depth, but they are one of them is the above and one of them is the below, because the method of the trick is that the cards are going to be stuck on top of the plastic or the bag. So this is the above card, the one with the magnet in the centre, that is the above card. The one without the magnet is the below card. You also have a little pot of putty, so you pop the lid on that. We'll have a little bit. So take this magnet. The first thing you want to do is find out where, which way round the polarity is on your gimmick. So obviously, if you pop it around the wrong way, it will refuse it, and you can see there. Well, I can feel it pushing against me. If I pop it down like that, I know that that's how it likes it, and that's the polarity, the correct polarity. So now this black putty in performance will be stuck to your hand, or the magnet will be stuck to your hand with a little bit of the black putty. So you're going to experiment with how much you want, but for now, I'll show you. I just put on a tiny amount, really small amount. It is super, super adhesive. Slide that guy off of there. And so it's super, super adhesive. You may want a bit more, you may want a little bit less, but you can experiment with it. And I've given you a whole bunch more if you need it. You also need that little bit of shim and a card box that matches the back design, whether you've got blue or red. So now you're going to just peel off this backing like this. Keep that backing paper as that important, and you're going to pop this adhesive backed card in here and just pop it. I put mine roughly where the Ace of Spades design is there, and just push it so it's firmly inside there. There we go, nice shot of that. Perfect. I'll make sure that's solid and not going anywhere. This card gimmick here, we'll talk more about when we're going through the routine, and you'll get a better idea of exactly what it does. But I'll show you roughly what happens now. You take the undercard, and you can tell the under and over. Obviously, there's a bump in the middle of the overcard, and that's basically that'll be living on top of the deck. But we'll talk more about that in performance. So first things first, remove the duplicate card from the deck of cards that you're working with. I'm using King of Diamonds, so remove your duplicate card from the gimmicks, or remove the duplicate card that matches the gimmicks that you're using. I also take out the jokers routinely. I also pull off the tabs off of the card box, as that makes it easier putting the cards into the box. If you're a gigging magician, chances are you're not working with a full deck of cards. If there are 48, 49 cards in there, it will make it easier to pull the deck of cards out, but you can certainly work with a full deck of cards as well. It's just slightly snugger. Obviously, you need to allow for the tiny bit of extra thickness of the shim as well inside the box. So an integral part of the routine is one of those court cards, the above card, will be stuck to your hand for a moment during the routine. And I know what you're thinking, no, I can't palm cards, I'm really scared, I've never palmed a card. Even if you are an absolute card expert, don't have to worry, you are not using any sleight of hand in this routine. The card is literally stuck to your hand. You do not need to be an expert in palming. In fact, you don't need to know anything about it, and I'll show you. So, here we have the magnet, which I showed you. You want to have it on the right polarity, and this is the above card. You can see that it locks onto the magnet there. So what we're going to try and do here is find the exact spot you want that magnet to stick to your hand. Now I know that for me, it's just below my second finger there. I know that if I make a fist there for a moment, that'll lock in position, never to come off at all. What you're looking for is if you just rest the card on your hand, you're looking for the position where the magnet will mean that the card is centered, and you will mostly be covering the card with your hand. So this is not the exact same position you would have if you were palming a card. If you were palming a card, you would want this bottom corner here to be underneath the fat of your thumb, and your little finger would have to pinch up here. You are absolutely not palming cards, and because you're not palming it, you can have your hand flat, which means you have a much larger surface area. So you're able to shake your hand up and down. You know that card isn't going to fall off. It is literally stuck to your hand. You definitely are not palming. So you're just going to adjust that position. You might want to go slightly higher. You might want to go slightly lower. If you've got huge hands, you might want to go slightly lower. But adjust that till you find that position, and you'll know exactly where you want that magnet to be. And I'll show you how you get that magnet on your hand shortly. So for the routine, the starting position would be you would have the plastic bag in your left outside jacket pocket, and the deck of cards would be in your right pocket. So you're going to reach in, give them the plastic bag to have a look at for a moment, and now Here's what it looks like when you're doing the steal. You'll pull the deck of cards out of your pocket. You're going to hold them, hold the cards like this with your thumb underneath. And when you push down, that magnet, because of the putty, will stick to your hand. So you want to hold it in such a position. I can see, if I can see through my hand, I know that it is that magnet is just exactly there where my knuckle is. If I push down here now and I slide, I have now got the magnet stuck to my hand. So it's just, I'm pushing down like this, I slide like this, and now I have the magnet. I take the deck of cards out on my hands. I now put the card box back in my pocket. If I turn this deck end for end like this, I can spread through, keeping the magnet concealed underneath the spread. Turn the deck over and I'm ready to go into performance. So the black putty is super adhesive, as you have no doubt found out by now. You may have some concern thinking, what if I'm in a working environment? Will the magnet still stick to my hand with the putty? What if I get a little bit sweaty? It will be absolutely fine. If you're at all worried, you can always put a little bit more, but for me, a tiny, tiny amount is absolutely fine. The only time I found that the putty didn't like sticking to my hand is if I had put some hand cream on my hands, and for some reason then the putty didn't like it, but 5 minutes later it was absolutely fine. So under normal conditions it will be absolutely fine, but if you're at all worried, a little bit more putty. Okay, so here is how you set the deck for the main routine. You're going to take the above card, always give it a little rub to make sure that is the above card. I like to pop it down about just under a halfway down the deck of cards, so put it face down inside of the deck. Now, this is the gimmick with a little tab on it here. So you place that on top, making sure to tuck the tab underneath so it's not visible. So I'm just going to slide that so as you can't see it. Now this is the below card, and you're going to open up this gimmick here and put this face up inside here and close it up. So now if you're holding the deck of cards, it just looks like a regular deck of cards. At this position here, you'll just be able to pop the cards into the box and start the routine. I'll show you how you get the magnet into play just now. If you hold the cards in your hand, if you run your thumb up and down the side of the deck, you'll be able to feel where the hinge of this this gimmick is here. So if I open it up, you can see the King of Diamonds is here. You want to make sure, this is the little flap, make sure that little flap is tucked there so as it can't be seen. Obviously you'll be holding it when you start the routine in this position here in sort of mechanics grip. No one's going to see anything at all. So yeah, this is your set position here. If you run your thumb, you can feel this. What you want to do is make sure that you always put the cards away in such a way that when you take them out, you don't have to rotate them around again. So if I put them back in here like this, I take the cards out. If I turn them over, I'm in the position I need to be with the hinge opening this way, which is correct. So if we pop the cards back into the box, which will show you how we get the magnet into play. I've got the magnet is stuck to the shim there, the same. Well, that'll quite happily stay there all day long. Now you may want to keep the bit of backing paper and put it on top of the black sticky putty. That's going to make sure that no putty isn't going to stick to any other props in your pocket and isn't going to get any fur or little bits of fluff on it. And in performance, you just pull out the cards and look at it like as if it's just a little bit of an extra thing that's stuck to your cards. Pay no attention at all, and then you can go straight into the load of the magnet onto your hand. Also, be careful, get rid of anything ferrous that's in your jacket pocket that's going to jump onto that magnet. Put those in other pockets so that you're free to work the routine. So let's talk about the card that ends up on top of the plastic. I tend to place my gimmick about halfway, maybe slightly less than halfway into the deck of cards, and I'm going to use the actions of a dribble force but not actually ask the spectator to call out stop. So I'm just going to dribble through the cards and I'll say we'll just take a random card, and when the card stops because of the thick card, I'll say this will be perfect. So basically I'm forcing a card on myself. Forcing wise, obviously you can do a riffle force or any other force you want to do that keeps the gimmicks from the top of the deck from interfering with the gimmick that will be in the middle of the deck. That'll be absolutely fine. If you want to, the easiest way is just to put a pencil dot on the card and spread through. You'll be able to feel it and you'll be able to see it. So you can even do it without looking, saying, we'll just randomly choose this card. If you spread through, you either note the pencil dotted card or you can feel that it's slightly thicker. So this will be perfect and just drop it on top of the plastic. So I will assume that you've chucked the card on top of the plastic bag or the acetate. So now you want to get the tab to slide out. So to do that, you let the cards fall loose in your hand. Very easy if you've just done a dribble force or a spread. Just let them spread out in your hands like this, but keeping control of them. Your right hand is going to come over and contact the upper card of the book gimmick. You're going to push, slide it over to the side, which will disengage the plastic tab, which you pinch with your thumb. You can see I've got it there. So I'll show you that again. Cards slide out in your hand. Your right hand comes over, lifts up on the back of the topmost of the book card, lift it over to the side. I'll show you here. You can see that tab is sticking out slightly, and as it does, it comes back, contacts, rides up that ramp, and then you put your thumb back in position. So we'll do that one more time. Cards are held loose in the hand. You lift up on this backmost card here, and this right hand is offering some cover here, so you could have it in performance. You might want to have it a little bit more like this to offer a bit more cover. Slides over, disengages the plastic, and your thumb pinches here. No one's ever going to see it. Your thumb is right along the length of the card here, and to anyone looking, it just looks like you're holding a deck of cards in a perfectly normal way. So in performance, you have the tab in the out position here, so as your thumb has it gripped. You also want to make sure that your fat of your thumb and your fingers on the edge of the deck here are proud of the top of the deck of cards, because obviously you're going to contact here and you don't want any of your hand to get in the way and stop that from happening. So when the card has been turned face up, there is going to be a tiny amount of motion as the magnets lock into position. You want to minimize that as much as possible. To do that, as you bring that card up, you want to make sure it's as much as possible lined up with the card that's above. You make contact, and you're going to bring your hand over, so keep it steady on this side. And as you do, you'll see there's a tiny amount of motion as that card moves over. Ostensibly, you're doing a one-handed second deal, but it's completely mechanical. You're not having to do any of the work, and that loads the card invisibly on top of the plastic bag or the acetate. So this is what the load looks like. The position you're in is that the card has been either been forced from a dribble force or a riffle force, or you've just pulled out the marked card and placed it on top of the plastic bag. In this instance, I'm using a piece of acetate, but it works in the same way. So you would have people holding the plastic from the left and the right, people on the left and the right. So in performance, I would come in, I would bring the deck of cards underneath, I would turn this card face up, and now I would tell them to bring the card down, or bring the plastic down slightly, or the plastic bag or the acetate down slightly. And as they do, this is going to motivate me bringing my hand that very small distance to kiss the bottom of the plastic. As you can see, my hand is face down here. The deck is rather face down. So contact here like this. I'm going to say keep it steady on this side. Keep it steady on this side. And under that action, I have loaded the card. Okay. So I'll show you what's going on. So regular mechanics grip would be something similar to this. Notice where my thumb is here. My fingers are proud of the top of the card deck. So, but for the fall, you want to be in an elevated position. So my fingers are no longer above the topmost card, and my thumb here isn't above this card. You want the card back to be the highest position here, and I don't need to worry because my thumb is bracing this the tab here, so it's going to control it. It won't fall. So in this position here, you're able to go up and do the load. So the hand is going straight up, and it's making contact flat onto the card, like this, and then moving away to load the card. So it absolutely must be completely flat and in an elevated position, making sure that your thumb and fingers are not making contact first with the plastic, because if it does, you won't make a flat connection and the card will not take to the acetate or the plastic bag. When you're coming up on a flat plane like this to make sure that the back of the deck of cards touches completely flat onto the acetate or the plastic bag. Importantly, once you make contact, you don't want to go directly to the left to unload the card, and you don't want to go directly back. You want to split that action really. So the plane I like to come back on is like this, outside of on the non-indexed corner. So the back left. So I'm going to come up like this and make contact, and I'm sliding out like this, and that's loading the card underneath and coming away in that action. And obviously you would have your hand over the top saying keep it steady on this side, keep it steady on this side as well, to offer a little bit of cover. So when you're making contact on the load, you want to be careful that you don't lower your hand down at all, as that will produce the topmost card of the gimmick raising up slightly. I'm exposing it here in a very exaggerated way. It would never look quite as much as this, but you can see that card is above. But don't worry, from above it's barely noticeable at all if you do it with a flat plane. So as you're coming up like this, you're making contact. As it's coming away, you're seeing a tiny little flare of the corner as it lands back down again, but it's almost imperceptible. And like I said before, your hand will be over the top saying keep it steady on this side, steady on this side. No one's going to notice it. So when you're loading the card, there is going to be a tiny amount of motion on that uppermost card as it makes contact. If you're using a piece of acetate or the plastic bag and you're asking people to move slightly to the left, slightly to the right, it's absolutely understandable that card would move slightly as it's being held on a shiny surface. So don't worry at all, there's no heat on that at all. But look, as this makes contact, you're going to see the ever so slight little movement as it's loaded on top. But like I said, that's covered by the adjustment of telling people to move left and move right, and also by the fact that it's a shiny surface. No one will notice it. Also, you'll have your hand over the top saying keep it steady on this side, keep it steady on this side. So this is a great suggestion from my friend Will Houston, which works really, really well if you're using some acetate. It does work well with the plastic bag as well, but you want to make sure you've got the person holding on the left and right and not just one person. One person will mean that you get the bars where it's being pulled under tension, and it won't work very cleanly. But if you've got people holding it the right way, it'll be fine. Ideally though, this subtlety works great with the acetate. So the position you're in is that the card has just been laid on top of the plastic. You're going to turn it over like this, and as you instruct them to keep it nice and steady, you're going to say steady on this side, steady on this side, and when the card is underneath, you're going to be able to push it effortlessly as if it's just one playing card, even though it's two playing cards. So I'll show you that again. Fairly self-explanatory. Once that card has been loaded underneath, you can just put your fingernail at the back here and push, and it'll keep them in perfect alignment, and they'll travel together quite happily before you tap them and the card falls through the plastic. Okay, so let's talk about unloading the card. So the position you're in, card is stuck to your hand because you've just knocked the card through the plastic. So imagine I've just knocked the card through the plastic into the cupped hands of the spectator. Chaos and excitement prevails. As that happens, I'm stepping back. You can step back a couple of feet. You want to give them plenty of space to breathe for that magic moment, as if you're saying, I don't want to be near you, I don't want to spoil that little magical moment. And as you do, you're going to unload this card. So I'm necktying the deck rather. So I'm bringing my hand up. I'm just peeling that card onto the deck. The magnet stays here, but so necktying the cards ever so slightly, and my thumb and index finger now are going to grab that card and pull it off the top of the deck of cards. And now I can relax. This hand can go right down to the side. I'll come back. When you want to, you're just going to pick up the card. The trick is over, no one cares. And you're just going to do a perfect double lift because of course these cards are going to lock together. And then if you want to, just for complete cleanup, I'm turning slightly to the side. and I'm tucking the little plastic flap away. I reach for the card box and I'm unloading the magnet now. I bring out the box and pop all of the cards back inside. Box goes away, then it just needs 2 seconds to reset it in a corner. Hello folks, this is the world's quickest card trick. I almost feel bad for you how quick the magic is going to happen. It's a little magic moment, so I'm going to give you an advantage. We're going to do it with a plastic bag so you can see the exact moment the cool thing happens. So person on my left, I'd like you to put your thumbs in the corners here for me. Person on my right, you put your thumbs in the corners here for me. Perfect. And hold it flat like a table. And we also need a playing card, doesn't really matter what it is. We're going to go with this guy. Perfect. Here's the idea. Right, keep it nice and flat for me. Here's the idea. King of diamonds, perfect. Will you bring it down a little bit lower for me? Perfect. Okay, don't move anymore. That's perfect. Keep it nice and flat on this side, nice and flat on this side. Here's the idea. Person in the front, will you put your hand just below the king? Just pull it below the plastic bag. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And the card falls through the plastic. So this is the explanation for my walk around routine. So you're going to start with having a folded plastic bag in your pocket or somewhere on your person, and the deck of cards that's been set, and it's got your magnet with a sticky putty here, and you want the sticky putty magnet facing outwards in that direction. So now, you explain you're going to show them the fastest magic trick in the world, or whatever presentation you would like. Pull out a plastic bag, you give it to your spectators, and you ask them to have a little look at it. They can open it. Obviously, it's not a trick where anything is going to be important whether the card goes in the bag or not. But if they do open it up, air will get in, and it becomes a slight faff getting it to close up to be as flat as possible. So, but as long as they're happy that they know that it's solid, then that's absolutely fine. You ask your spectators to hold that. Then you reach in. You're going to pull out a deck of cards. I'm now pushing with my fist or with my hand, pushing hard onto that putty-covered magnet. And as I push against the deck, I can now slide in this direction, which will mean that the magnet sticks to my hand. So I just come down this position here, I pull the deck cards out, keeping the back of my hand towards the audience, knowing that the magnet is completely covered. I put the card box away. I'm going to run my thumb up here just to be absolutely sure that this side is the way that the book gimmick will open, and it is. Then I turn slightly shoulder on, and I ask the spectators to hold it. So thumbs on each corner. If I've got 3 people, so one person on my left, thumb here and here, person on my right, thumb here and here, person in front with their hands underneath, ready to catch the card. I then dribble through, so you see the random card. That's stopping at the thick card. You're going to leave the cards loose in your hand like this as you lift up on this top card here, and you're going to set the plastic tab just by sliding back, getting this position. So I'll show that again. Those cards are loose. I push over in this direction, the tab engages, I put my thumb back here. At that moment now, the hand can go underneath, and it's only now do I turn it over face up. And I'm very interested in the card. That's the reason why it can motivate my coming right underneath here. Go, let's have a look, what have we got? Oh, the King of Diamonds. So when I'm turning that over, obviously I've got the back of my hand towards the audience. I can turn that over knowing that no one's going to see the magnet stuck to my hand. If there's someone on my left or very right, I can turn it over in a slightly cosy way, but no one's going to see it. I now say, I have my hand underneath here, face down, and I'm going to say I'm going to come up here, so drop it down a little bit, get a little bit lower. I make contact, and I say keep it steady on this side, steady on this side, and invisibly that card is loaded underneath here. Even if you're watching, you just can't see it. So I'll share that again. I come up, say, bring it down a little bit lower, and as I do, that's going to bring it very, very close. I just come up a little bit, make contact, load that card, and say, keep it steady on this side, steady on this side. And that small little tiny adjustment from the left, coming over here, is going to cover any movement from that card and makes it completely invisible. Now, you say, okay, put your hands underneath the card. So this is your spectators in front. They put their hands underneath. Now I can step back, knowing that this is the fun part. They would have their hands underneath. I tap. The card falls through. Now, you've got a card stuck to your hand. Don't panic. That card has just landed in their hands and produced absolute chaos. No one's looking at all. You can just stay in this position, channel Max Malini. There's no reason to rush here at all. That card is on your hand. You can even step back further, give them that moment. Let them experience that astonishing moment. And when you want to, you're going to bring that card back on top like a palmed card replacement. But you're very, very simple. You give them that moment, slight little wrist kill here like this. This hand comes up. Your thumbs take the top left and top right corners and they pull it away from the magnet, bring that card on top. Now, you just keep a little wrist kill here, no one can see what's going on. I take the card from their hands, I drop it back on top to remind them of what has just happened. And when the reaction starts to fade, I just pick that card up, put it back on top of the deck, turn it over a double, because I can do, because those cards will want to lock together. So it's the world's easiest double lift. And then also lift up to this tab before you put the deck cards away. It's always nice to be able to tuck the tab away again. I reach into my pocket, I grab the card box, and I'm going to load the magnet back on just by bringing it close to it. I've had this on for some time, so it's a little bit harder to get it to take, but under normal circumstances that will take quite happily. Once it's, so you're going to pop that back on top, put all of the cards back into the box, and then you can reset in private. It just takes 2 seconds to reset those cards. Take the plastic bag back, fold it up, stick it in your pocket, and you're ready to go to your next group and perform the fall straight away again. So let's talk about what you can penetrate your card through. I like to do it through a piece of acetate. As a gigging magician, it's really easy to pop this inside my jacket pocket, and it takes a couple of seconds to pull the rubber band off and get spectators to hold it flat. They'll be able to hold it absolutely perfectly flat. With the package, you got an A4 grip seal bag, which is super portable. You can fold that down to almost nothing, and you can get your spectators to hold that. If I am doing it for one person, it is slightly harder because you sort of control how taut they hold that plastic bag. If it's very tight, you're going to see lines across the top, and it means that the card won't be able to fall down flat. So much easier if you have a spectator on either side. So spectator holding on this side, spectator holding here and here, and between them they can hold it flatter, and it's a lot easier that way. You can also use a chiffon scarf. Now it depends which kind of performer you are, but if this suits for you, this is absolutely perfect. You can also make it play bigger. Get 4 spectators, because it's a large piece of material, get them all to hold a corner each. You can drop the card on and the card will fall through onto the chiffon, or onto the deck of cards, or onto your spectators' hands. What you can't do it through is a glass table. A lot of people have asked, can you do it through a glass table? Absolutely no. This is designed, purpose-built to be a walk-around magic trick. It is the solution to creating the impression of card through glass table when you don't have a glass table. You can't do it through a glass table. A glass table is going to be 10mm thick, maybe 7 at the absolute thinnest. And if you imagine putting a playing card on top of the table, and then you'd have 7 or 8mm of thickness of glass and another playing card underneath. If you see that at anything other than directly above, you will know that it's too thick and it couldn't possibly be one single playing card. Whereas through a few microns of plastic or chiffon, it's incredibly deceptive. Obviously, the magnets are designed to work with thin plastic, so they absolutely will not be able to pass through something as thick as a glass table. So it's just not going to work. But stick with acetate, the plastic bag, or the chiffon scarf. You can also do it through an opaque handkerchief. That's absolutely fine as well. A piece of paper will work fine as well, but obviously you won't have the visual nature. But anything that's very thin will work fine. If you're using a piece of acrylic, like I said, 1 mil or no thicker than that really. So when it comes to practicing, it is a nightmare having to ask people to always hold a piece of acetate or a plastic bag. So that isn't practical. What I like to do is I've got 4 bottles and I put the piece of acetate onto the top, and they've got cork lids. So just push some push pins into the top and put it on top so as it keeps the acetate or the plastic bag in position. You can do something very similar with a couple of cans of beans. Get 4 or maybe 8 cans of beans, 2 on each corner, and have them stacked up like this. Put a plastic bag on top and a little bit of sticky tape in the corners will keep it elevated off the table so as you can practice. Or you can also get a couple of chairs. If you've got some old chairs, put the plastic bag across the top and a bit of blue tack in the corners of that, or a bit of light tape will keep that in position. So you'll be able to practice without having to ask your partner to constantly hold the plastic bag or acetate. So my preferred way I like to have spectators in a walk around environment is one person on the left, one person on the right, and one person in front who's going to be catching the card. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to have somebody holding both corners of a plastic bag or a piece of acetate. Right side holding both corners. You want it tight, but not so tight that you're going to get those pull lines across the middle. Because if you do, it's going to raise up the card and it's going to make it much harder to load, or raise up the bag rather, make it much harder to do that load successfully. And then a spectator at the front is going to catch. You can also do it, have one person holding it and the card drops onto the table, or drops through onto the deck of cards and you reload it, as I'll show you in a moment. Or you can do it with just with 2 people, one person holding it and the other person with their hands underneath, whatever you've got. You can also go full tilt, have 4 people holding, one on each corner here, and then a 5th person with their hands underneath. So it can play very big for a large group of people. And because it's incredibly visual, it allows them to all have a little part of it, and they're going to see that incredible magical moment. If you've got additional people, there's another lovely little subtlety you can do, which is you can say, this is going to happen so quickly. Get your phones out. If you're not already doing a job here, get your phones out. I want you to film this. So when you do the load, you can say, everyone, come around here, film it. I want you to film it straight from above. I want you to get the best possible view you can, which is also great cover for doing the load, and they're going to see this incredible visual magic moment. So let's talk about angles. This trick can only be done walk around. It is not designed to be done at a table. You can only do it if people are holding the plastic bag or the acetate and looking directly from above. Obviously you can do it on social media as well, as long as you have the camera straight above, but you don't want to do it at a table. It's got really good angles. You can be pretty much surrounded. You don't want people looking underneath the plastic after you have loaded the card, but before then is fine. You'll see in the performance someone decides to crouch down and look at the card that's on top of the plastic bag. Absolutely fine. From that moment on though, you want to be a little bit cautious that people don't decide to look underneath once you've loaded the card, and a moment later you'll have be stealing that card off with the magnet on your hand. So at that point then you definitely don't want people looking below, but you're only doing that for a few seconds, so you're pretty much wide open and fair for as long as possible until the final moments of the routine. Okay folks, we need a card chosen, so just call out stop. Okay, great. Doesn't really matter what it is. We have the King of Diamonds. Okay, nice and level on this side, nice and level on this side. In fact, you know what? Just bring it up a little bit for me. All right, stop, no more, that's perfect. Here's the idea. Do not blink. 1, 2, 3. And your card falls through. So here is a really lean performance for the workers out there. For this, you don't need the book giving. You do need to start with a magnet on your hand. You can either steal it in the same way as I have in the other parts of the routine, where it's stuck to the outside of the box, or you can have it stuck to another prop and you just steal it in any way you want to, or you can turn away slightly. Anyone that's a working gigging magician knows there's plenty of moments at the end of a reaction to a trick where you can just turn and do something slightly sneaky. But anyway, your starting position is the card, or the magnet rather, is stuck to your hand. On top of the deck you have the above card. On the face of the deck you have the below card. You turn slightly onto the spectators while they're holding the plastic bag or the acetate. You're going to perform a riffle force. They say stop. Okay, great. The cards get cut back so as the below card is on the face of the deck, and you're going to hold it just down by the side of your leg like this. And you say little micro adjustments. Can you lift it up slightly on this side? Lift it up slightly on this side. Okay, perfect. Okay, great. You turn this card face up as your hand comes underneath, but you still keep your hand face down. And then you're going to do two actions at the same time. You're going to put one hand above, and your hand is going to come down with the heel of your hand, just the heel of your hand, because the heel of your hand is far enough away from the magnet that it won't contact it, but it also acts as a block. So your hand comes in, it blocks off like this. As it does, you're going to block off, and at the exact same moment that happens, which is stopping the card from raising up, you're going to come up like this and make contact and lock the card onto the magnet. So you're going to come up like this, lock it on like this, and you can come away. So in speed, you'd have this here, and you'd say, and just come up a little bit for me, and then you're putting your hand out to say stop. That's the break. So you say, bring it up a little bit for me. Go, oh, that's perfect. No more. That's perfect. Stop. And just in that little instant, you've loaded the card. It just takes a split second to load it on there when you get practiced. And then when it comes to the penetration, you can obviously do the little push subtlety if you want to. When it comes to the card going through the plastic, you're going to just tap, it falls through, and under that reaction, just bring that card back onto the top of the deck. So, for transportation, you're going to move the magnet. You're either going to pop it back into the container, or what I like to do, just pop it on an area of the box where the shim isn't. That means that you can pop that just into your close-up case and it'll be absolutely fine. So when introducing the plastic bag or the acetate, I tend to say something like, this trick happens so fast, I want you guys to see the exact moment the magic happens. So I want to give you a fighting chance. I'm going to use something that's transparent. Magicians would never normally do that. I want you guys to see the exact moment the magic happens. And as magicians, we've seen plenty of routines like David Copperfield walking through the Great Wall of China, surrounded by a kind of tent or a box as before he walks through it, or bottle through table, another famous trick, where you're wrapping it in a handkerchief because that's covering the sneaky moment. With this, I want to be as open, as fair as possible. Another reference you can use possibly for presentation is David Blaine famously did card through window. Really strong trick. You can stick with a presentation about you doing a budget version of card through window, hence the reason why you've got a plastic bag or the acetate, which is on budget. Lots of other magicians like Dynamo have also walked through glass windows, and lots of other references in magic of card through window or person through window. Also, Alex Geyser, who's a terrific magician who was on Fool Us a few years ago, did coins through table, and he had a piece of acrylic that he held underneath his arm, and he made a feature of his act. If people would ask, what have you got that for? You can say, I'll show you, and you can ask your spectators to immediately go into holding it. So you don't need to hide it as much as make it into a feature. In some ways, it's a strength to be able to say, I've got this prop, because it creates intrigue and interest, so you can go straight into the routine. And if you choose to go in that direction, you may want to use a frame around the outside of the acrylic. I'd go with a thin frame so as it looks quite pretty, but just want to make things look as fair as possible, but also visually interesting. So we're just going to talk about motivating the deck coming up towards the plastic. Obviously, you want to minimise that as much as possible, and with routining, your hand will be directly underneath that playing card, just when you're turning it over for the first time, because you're very interested as to what that card is, and your hand will be directly underneath it. So you'll want to tell them at that moment, just bring it down a little bit, and as you ask them to lower it, then a little bit of urgency, you can say, oh, that's it, perfect, stop, no more. And your hand will naturally just come up to brace it, as if to say, don't go any further than that. You can also ask them to make micro adjustments. So maybe you say, you guys, you come up a little bit, you step back a little bit. No one knows what's going on, and all of this seems to make sense because you're trying to find the exact sweet spot where that card will pass through. So those little micro adjustments, that's how you're going to find your motivation to kiss the pack, so as you can do your load and load the duplicate card underneath. So here's a nice little touch. If you're a gigging magician, you're always looking for publicity. So I like to get people that aren't holding the plastic to get involved as well and to film it with their phones so they can show their friends. And it's also a really great motivation for the any sneakiness you've got to do. So when you've got to touch the pack to the plastic, at that exact moment, you can say, get your phones out, go onto the camera, and want you to record this. Put your hands directly above the acetate or the plastic bag. And at that exact moment, I also will sometimes do this and drop my business card on top. So as my business card is in shot the whole time. So when the card goes down here, I'm telling them to film from above. And of course, the whole way through this trick, they're seeing a super visual piece of magic, but my business card is directly on top. And also, if you're using a plastic bag, you can drop the business card inside the plastic bag. You can stay inside there the whole time. You can also put a sticker with your contact details just on the outside of the plastic bag. So again, that is permanently there as well. If they're going to share it on social media, which I would strongly encourage them to do, so don't forget to tag me as well. And your contact details will always be in the image because it's embedded in the video. So this is a nice touch as well. If you're a gigging magician, you can put a duplicate signature on both cards. Anyone, so just a random name, as long as both signatures look identical on both cards. Anyone joining the trick late will assume that someone has signed the card. Anyone sharing on social media will again assume it's been signed. Just make sure they both look absolutely identical, and it's a nice little touch for passing off duplicate cards as signed cards in inverted commas. And you can of course also perform the fall face down. So if you change the polarity of the magnet, just peel the putty off and stick it on the other way, that means that the magnet will attract with the card face down on top of the plastic. So if you're looking to do it, maybe you flash the card, you're going to hold it up, pop it face down on the plastic, it will fall through. You add the card back, you can do a double lift to turn it over to show that that card has fallen through. I can't think of a reason why you would want to, but should your routining dictate that you want to do it face down, then it'll absolutely work. If you're performing the fall on social media without any spectators, maybe you've got some upturned wine glasses with a piece of acrylic or acetate on top of that. One of the things that's quite nice is if you've got a table that you're working off, if that table is draped or it's you can't see below that point, if you have got the card stuck to your hand, as you reach back, you can just flick that card off your hand to unload it. So you haven't got to worry about unloading it in any other way. You can just knock it off below the edge of the table and it's squeaky clean. Obviously then, after the fact of filming it, you may want to remove the audio of the playing card landing on the floor if it makes a tiny little noise. But it's a nice little subtlety you can do if you're doing it on social media. So in performance of the fall, you're always going to be cautious to not over-rotate your hand around to flash the magnet. If you're at all worried that anyone's going to spot it, you can put maybe a plaster on the magnet and cut around it, and if anyone does happen to catch a glance of it, it'll be absolutely fine. So with your purchase of the fall, you received a plastic bag. That will not last forever. It will get crumpled, it will rip. So once in a while when you're performing, swap it out for a nice new plastic bag. You can get them for absolute pennies on eBay. Buy a box of 100, it might be $5, so not a lot of money. I've got A4 grip seal bags, what I use, but I'm sure wherever you are, you'll be able to find something very similar. And similarly, the acetate is incredibly cheap to buy as well. If you prefer performing with the acetate, you can get 100 sheets of that. I think it's 140 microns that I use. It's widely available on Amazon and eBay for a few pennies. So in use, eventually your book gimmick will fatigue and will break. It's just a couple of playing cards and a piece of acetate, and it's very easy to make a new one. Try and keep the piece of acetate, don't lose that. If you do happen to lose it, it's just a piece of acetate that's 15mm by 30mm approximately. If you haven't got any acetate in the house, I'm sure you've got something, a bit of plastic or something like that that'll be absolutely fine with it. So yeah, 30mm by 15mm and 2 old playing cards. And I'll show you now how you go about making a new one. So to make a new gimmick, you're going to need the piece of acetate that came with the fall. If you haven't got that, I'm sure you can make something that's something very similar to that. So take a piece of Scotch magic tape, that's what I like to use. You can find that stuff online, and you're going to measure it against the length of the acetate and just cut it off at that point. And now take this piece of the taped side and you're going to put that onto the centre of a playing card, and you're going to put it, butt it right up against the centre of the playing card and push down, and now you're going to fold it over. Take the other playing card and you're going to pop that on the other side like that with the piece of acetate trapped in between. You're going to need another little piece of Scotch magic tape now. Just a couple of centimetres will be fine, and you're going to pop it on one end, being careful not to trap the acetate, to keep them in perfect alignment. Fold that over. That's going to be one side of the hinge. And now another little piece of the Scotch magic tape, put it on the other end. Again, be careful not to keep the acetate trapped. Now if you fold it back in the other direction, your gimmick is complete and you're ready to perform the fall whenever you wish. If you're practicing the fall for 30 minutes, an hour, for a long period of time, and you have that magnet stuck to the palm of your hand, a small amount of the black residue will transfer onto the palm of your hand if you do it for a long time. But in reality, if you're performing this live, you're only going to be holding that magnet out for 20 seconds, something like that. There'll be no transference. So don't worry at all about that. If it does happen to stick to your hand, just take the magnet and just dab it with the putty or directly onto your hand, and it will hoover it up. It'll just take all of that off, and it'll be absolutely fine. And also, if you decide to place the magnet onto the card box like this, if you keep it like that for a long period of time, maybe in your close-up case, you'll find that a little piece of this black putty may transfer onto the card box. If that happens, again, you're just going to dab it with the putty, and the putty, as it's super sticky, will take and remove all of the little bits of black on there. It won't tear the card box either. Magicians have been putting objects through tables for years. Obviously there's lots of classic routines in the literature for coins through table. Then we had coins through glass table. I think James Lewis was the first person to do coins through glass table. First card through glass table that I saw was the Gaston Quieto version from his DVD 20, which is a really visual card through glass table, but there's been lots of others, and we'll include all of those in the credit section at the end of the video.